Okay, the real estate market is shifting. We're seeing inventory stacking up. We're seeing recession alarms. We're seeing rate speculations that are keeping people on the fence, off the fence. They're not sure if they should be waiting for interest rates to drop. And of course, real estate commission confusion. We're going to talk a little bit about the shift right now with Aaron.
Hey, what's up, man? Yeah, there's a whole lot of shift happening when it comes to real estate and just the economy, in general. So let's dive in, man. There's a lot of good things to talk about here. What do you got on top of the list?
Inventory, we're seeing a lot more inventory stacking up. Not a whole lot of new inventory, but we're seeing stacking up. We're seeing price cuts as well too. But the inventory stuff, if you guys are seeing inventory kind of like there's more inventory on the market, don't get so excited that it's new inventory and there's so much new inventory on the market because of rate cuts. What I'm seeing more is there's inventory that's kind of maybe high priced. It's stacking up on the market, which at the end of the day, I think will be a good thing if, sellers decide to reduce. As far as inventory, what are you seeing out there, Aaron?
I am seeing things stack up a little bit, but it's all the retreads. It's honestly, it's really annoying because I get the little email updates, for the markets that I'm looking at. And it's like, hey, this new listing. And it's like, I've got some of the property addresses memorized. And, there's a lot of properties, especially like in fire zones or areas where like sellers just got, the market was a little overheated maybe, where, they've basically set the price too high. And so they kind of get stuck in this like, time void where, things kind of drag on a bit and it gets a little stale. And consumers are smart. Everybody that has a phone and an app, they're looking at these things and they notice that stuff. I'm seeing one trick that's getting used a lot right now, which always drives me nuts, are like, in my opinion, the fake price reductions, where it's like basically the listing isn't moving, but the seller's not willing to make a real price reduction. So they drop the price by like $1,000 or $5,000 or something. And the only reason they do that is so that they show back up in the top of the searches, because it basically that's how it works. But I don't know, man. I think that we're going to continue to see some inventory stack up, but as it has stayed consistent through this whole market, even with like 8% rates, the houses that are priced effectively, that are like turnkey, they don't need to be remodeled, things like that, those are still flying off the shelf. It's basically the houses where either the seller's just not realistic with the price, and or it's like 1960, shag carpet, full remodel kind of deal.
Well, here's the thing. If you see a price cut of $1,000, run fast. That just means that for the most part, the seller ain't budging and the real estate agent got on their hands and knees and begged them for this, please do it. So I always look at those and I go, man, that means just like the seller is either going to pull them off the market, put it on hold, but they're sitting on a 2.75 and they just don't want to do a realistic price reduction. So for me,
Yep.
those are the ones I'm very, very iffy on as far as for my clients and everything too. The ones that I like right now you are seeing stuff that's been on the market for 2 weeks or longer and they have legitimate price cuts. And a lot of people are wondering, are these price cuts meaning that like the sky is falling Chicken Little, or are these price cuts kind of going back down to what they should have been priced at the very beginning? I kind of think they're probably, now the pricing is probably realistic as far as like, the seller saying, hey, look, I know I'm sitting on a 2.75, but now that we got down that road of trying to sell our house, I got to sell it. And if you think I got to reduce it to make this happen, let's go. Or the seller found another home that they love and they're saying, let's go realistic. Let's sell this thing and let's go. What do you see, Aaron?
Well, part of this is seasonal too. I mean, a lot of us, like, we forget that this is a seasonal business. It's a cyclical thing. And, when you look at the prices of homes in general in real estate, they rise during the spring and summer months. And towards the end of the summer, they start declining into the winter months because there's just less people willing to move during that time. So there's just less supply demand. And so I think that the interesting dynamic, kind of a curveball, which I know you got this on the list to talk about more, is rates. That could, kind of breathe some life back into the real estate market in terms of the listing side of things. Or, who knows, this could, be the sign of a slower months to come and more opportunities for buyers.
Well, let's hit back on the seasonal thing that you mentioned. Okay, like seasonal wise, guys, everyone's kids are back at school. We've kind of settled in after a vacation. We're kind of jumping into our like school routine, right? The idea of, hey, we got to get books. Also, sports. Big time. My daughter actually scored 3 goals yesterday, so I was Saturday, so I was super excited. But we're into that whole idea of like, we got a lot of stuff going on right now. We just don't really have the time to go out and look at houses. And also for me, the idea of pulling the kids out of school to go to a new school district, even if you found something, then you got to deal with rentals and leases. This just isn't the optimal time to buy. But that being said, Aaron last week was like, guys, I got to tell you, we're getting a lot of applications in right now too, which is like what Aaron hit on too. Interest rates, even though right now seasonality and like schools and sports, I mean, and people are usually cemented in the idea of I ain't going anywhere. Like there's a lot of movement based on interest rates. Numbers are driving the market. Aaron, what are you seeing as far as like applications based on like what you saw during summer and what you're seeing right now?
It's actually busier right now than it was like in May or June, really. And a lot of it is the, excitement about interest rates, starting to trend lower. And also not the promise, but, there's a lot to, think it's going to happen further into the future. Especially with Jerome Powell finally coming out last Friday at the Jackson Hole speech, and it's this time for the Fed to cut rates. So consumers are starting to think that things are going to become more affordable. But I do think that there's a lot of savvy buyers out there that have gotten beat out time and time again in these more difficult markets. And so you're seeing people trying to basically like take advantage of the opportunity right now of, I'm gonna get in now while things are improving in terms of interest rates, but I'm not going to wait until they've come all the way down when everybody and their mom is now trying to buy a house and I've got way more competition. I'll just refinance, down the road if they really get that much better. But I think that's kind of the majority of the buyers that we're seeing right now. They're kind of taking advantage of the opportunity. I've got a lot of clients that have been writing offers that have, and like I mentioned last week, a lot more people have been applying to get pre-approved. And I also think, Mark, that, for those of you guys that watch, Mark and I talk about 2 things consistently on this show. And one of them is that you got to time your life and not the market. You can never time the market. And then the other thing is that you need to be ready to pounce when those opportunities become available, because nothing just goes in a straight line. It's constantly up, down, and every now and again we get some really great pops in rates, or a great property shows up. But if you're not ready, you're not pre-approved, you haven't already figured the numbers out, all that stuff, then you're most likely going to miss out. And so I do think that a lot of people are also taking our advice of getting ready to pounce, in terms of, when rates do come down, being ready to, take advantage of the opportunity then as well. But that's what I'm seeing on my end.
I'm seeing buyers also. I mean, there's some people who are pouncing, taking advantage of stuff like in the new home space, some resale stuff as well too. But I think also there's a lot of people that have been burnt before. They've been like, you know what? Rates were supposed to come down. They never came down. This could be this could be that. People feel very much like a mistrust in the market right now. A lot of people are saying like, I was excited, then I'm not, this and that. Jerome Powell wore a purple tie 3 weeks ago and everyone's telling me rates are coming down. Will they? Then you got a lot of people who are speculators. They're like, you know what? Rates are coming down and I'm going to wait till they get the very, very lowest and then I'm going to jump in. House prices are going to drop. That's the market I'm seeing, which is completely unrealistic, but a lot of people kind of have that mentality. I also think additional factors, the election coming up, I think a lot of people are thinking whoever becomes president or whatnot is going to basically, the real estate market is going to be very, very affected by this, which realistically probably, and the buyer broker, the commission stuff. I think it's making it very, very confusing to trust the market. Who should you go with? Who should you trust? Who should you listen to? Should I buy now? Should I buy? There's just a lot of mistrust right now in the market, a lot of misdirection. I mean, are you seeing a little bit of that as well?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that a lot of people are concerned about the elections, and not necessarily, well, obviously everybody's concerned one way or the other depending on who you're voting for or whatever, but that at the end of the day creates uncertainty, and markets hate uncertainty. If you look at the stock market, and you look at days where things go really sideways, it's when a lot of uncertainty is created, because people want to be betting on a sure thing. Like, who wants to gamble and not be right, especially when you're buying a house. So I do think that buyers are a lot of them are being a lot more cautious, especially if you're in a line of work where, for instance, like, and I'm just, providing just an example here, but like Trump, for instance, he had talked about recently in one of his speeches about, getting rid of the EV tax credits, right? Which was funny because Musk endorsed him like an hour before or something, right? But um, if I worked for an EV company, or some sort of industry where like I'm tied to that, and then I'm hearing a politician say, "Hey, we're going to get rid of that," I may be like, you know what? Let's wait until after the election so that we can, see how the dust settles with that, and if we need to be concerned. So I think there's that. There's a lot of talk about a recession, and that's actually becoming a much louder conversation, I think. Especially with the Fed finally being in a point of view that they need to start reducing rates. And so a lot of people don't understand that like a recession is not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't mean we're all going to be like in the breadline, living on, soup or whatever. And, it's like the Depression or whatever. But a recession is just basically like a retraction in the economy. And it's, there's going to be certain sectors of the economy that are going to kick butt, and there's going to be others that are not. But it's always like that, in my opinion. And so if you look at real estate and you look at interest rates with real estate always does really well post recession, during recession, post recession. And it's because typically the government dumps a bunch of money into the economy and people go and spend it. And so I would assume that, over the next, couple of years or whatever, as we work our way through all this, the people that get in kind of earlier in the, in the real estate versus later, they're going to pay less for that real estate, because we still have inventory issues. I was looking at it before we started the recording on this, and I mean, most markets you're running like 2 to maybe 2.5 months supply. So it's definitely a far cry from being a buyer's market, wouldn't you say?
100%. I mean, we're not going to be hitting the buyer's market for a long, long time. I think also the numbers on the market too. I think a lot of people could use the numbers that we're seeing on the market to basically hype stuff up if they want to. There's very subjective numbers. A lot of people could see like inventory trending up and go, "Oh my God, there's a tons of inventory. Inventory's coming back, and we're good." But if you look deep down into the numbers, you're going to see there's a lot of, like you said, retreads, things were on hold. Maybe they're back on the market, switching of photos, and just stuff that's kind of stacking up. I'm seeing a lot of houses days on the market is increasing. I think in the Sacramento area, I think our luxury market is getting hit really, really hard. I'm seeing not a lot of deals over 2.5 and in the luxury space right now. I think also the new home stuff. I'm seeing a lot more incentives than I would see. Like, I would see zero to none incentives if the new home market was just booming. They're not going to give you money just because they like you. They're going to give you money to bring in buyers for their homes, and because the incentives now are crazy, and also for you guys out there getting 3.99s. I mean, so there is something happening right now, but at the same time, the numbers can be used to manipulate people's like perception on stuff, right? I mean, a lot of realtors out there doing videos where they're like, "Oh my God, inventory's up. You guys should be buying right now. Inventory, so much inventory." But you got to drill down the numbers. You got to talk to people who are actually out there looking at this stuff and kind of seeing what stuff is really, really out there. I mean, is it worth jumping into this market? For me, I'm a picky person myself. Like, so for me, I'm very, very picky. I would go two ways I would go into this market. One is say, look, I'm going for a stepping stone home. This home is eventually going to be my first investment property. I'm going to jump in here. I'm going to sit here for a couple of years and just let it kind of settle and see the market, how it plays out. Maybe explore with Mark's team and figure that out. Or number two, I would kind of like start looking for certain communities, areas that I really, really liked and focus in on that. And then just, like I said, work with a team that's really aggressive in this area. In this day of buyer brokers that's out there as well too, I mean, you should be interviewing realtors. You shouldn't be just signing something willy-nilly off Zillow. That's the last thing you should be doing. So I do think in this market, like, be picky, but at the same time, you got to balance it with realistic as well too. What do you think, Aaron?
Oh yeah, what is it? Paralysis by analysis or whatever is the saying. Like I think if you're too picky, you're never gonna move forward. There's never gonna be the perfect property. I've in my own search of like what I wanted and what I now am like willing to take is much different. And, that's based off of just, being realistic with what's out there and all that stuff. I mean, it's not realistic to think that we're going to have a big glut of inventory like we did in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, when basically all the banks foreclosed upon all the houses that everybody walked away from. Because, if we all got in a time machine and went back 20 years, most of you guys took out adjustable rate mortgages. And then in like 2008, the S hit the fan when, all of the house of cards came down and everybody's payments adjusted. And literally people were upside down on their mortgage. They owed more than what was, what the home was worth, all this stuff. It was a complete train wreck. I was in it. I was in the middle of it. I lived through it. And we are in a completely different world now where your average homeowner has like something like 60% of their home's value is equity. Most people are running 2, 3, 4% interest rates, all that kind of stuff. So, we're in a different world in terms of, homeowner motivation to walk away from their home or foreclose, or the health of the homeowner, whatever you want to call it. So, we're not going to see all that inventory that we once had that would cause, prices to, tumble or anything like that. So it can be really confusing, I think, with how the media a lot of times if you're watching, the mainstream media and they're talking about real estate, they will hone in on something called the median sales price. And, Mark, you were just talking about how luxury home sales are down because, ballers are not buying, multi-million-dollar properties right now like they were in a better economy. And that in itself brings down the median sales price, even though home prices are increasing. So there's a lot of misinformation out there where it seems like, things are heading in an opposite direction than where they are. So, definitely do your research, lean on your professionals, and be, cautious, like Mark was saying about just signing up with the buyer broker with Zillow, just to go see a house or whatever.
All right. So Aaron, let's talk 6 months down the road. Now we're in a shift, as we all know. And so we're thinking like 6 months down the road, we got inventory stacking up. We got some price cuts. We got the election. A lot of people rate speculation, everything too. Now for me, I'll go first on this one. As far as me, I think in 6 months time, I think if you're looking for new homes, I think you could get some really good deals in the new home area. Because I do think right now I'm feeling a little shift in new homes as well too. In resale, I think if we get into the fives, all of a sudden we could see some crazy buyer demand hit our market, and then all of a sudden like prices could go up. And I think there is that number. I think there is gonna be that certain number that no matter if school's in town, no matter if or school's out in, no matter if like sports are going crazy, I think if people see a good enough interest rate, all of a sudden demand will hit. Now, will that be enough to get sellers to like actually say, you know what, I got a 2.75, but I want to sell my home? A little bit. I don't think a lot. I don't think this is going to be a big cure for our inventory problem. In fact, I think it might be the exact opposite. It could turn into a lot more of a competitive market. I would say the biggest indicator for anyone out there is know your community, know your area, see how fast things are moving into certain areas you're looking to buy in, gauge the price per square foot, and definitely understand that numbers move markets. So keep an eye out for the interest rate and see how those communities and areas are affected by the interest rate drop or increase. How about you, Aaron?
Yeah, I think that we will see rates come down a bit. You got to understand, guys, that the markets, they've already priced in most of the Fed rate cut for the year into interest rates. That's why there's a little refinance boom happening with with interest rates right now, and there's so much excitement about it. Is that bond traders have already basically baked it into the pricing. Now, are rates going to, go down to 2% or 3%? I have no crystal ball, obviously, but if you look at rates historically, if you look at why rates got that low, we are not going to most likely have the type of government intervention that caused rates to drop down like that this time around, or at least, anytime in the near future. So thinking that rates are going to be like 2, 3, 4% and waiting for them to get that low, I think you're going to be waiting a long time. Meanwhile, home prices will continue to go up. But I think that sometime next year, it is reasonable to believe that you'll see mortgage interest rates on a 30-year loan in the 5% range without any gimmicks. Like, right, you mentioned earlier, like there's I think it's Clowes. They've got a deal with, and it's not on all their houses. It's like on, community specific. And I think it's even like floor plan specific. But if you do an FHA loan with them, you can get a 3.99 rate, which that's a sweet deal, but you got to take an FHA loan. So that kind of sucks. And you better really like that KHOV community in house because it's only particularly for that. So that's a gimmick where builders are baking the cost of giving you that rate into the sales price of the home. But when the market naturally gets to, where rates are, in the fives or whatever, I do think that you will see buyers come out in droves. That seems to be not only like obviously more affordable mathematically, but I think that the like psychological, the psychological kind of hang up on interest rates, the fives just seem pretty good, especially when you look at things historically. Like on average, historically, rates have been above 6%, like for the last like 80 something years. So I do think that that'll bring out more buyers, which is good in one way, but it's also going to reduce inventory because builders aren't, building more houses, especially not more affordable houses. They're focused on, the really profitable, more expensive ones, and they're not cranking them out as fast because they don't want to get stuck with a bunch of inventory and then do fire sales and stuff. So it's not going to be an easy market. That's why, it's hard for somebody like in my position where this is what I do for a living. I sell mortgages, or Mark, he sells real estate, to tell somebody like, yeah, you're better off buying now, assuming that it works in your life. It seems super like snake oilsy, like it's self-fulfilling where it's like, well, yeah, that's good because we want you to work with us. But just if you're thinking about things logically, as rates come down, there's going to be a whole lot more people that show up to the party, and the keg's going to get tapped out quicker. It's going to cost more. It's just what happens every time. So I would recommend for everybody to get ready to pounce, which reach out to me if you want to get pre-approved. Happy to go over any numbers with you guys, but that's kind of what I would expect is a really busy spring buying season. It's going to be bananas.
All right. Well, shift definitely does happen, and it's definitely happening in the real estate market right now. So hopefully this video helped you guys out a little bit, understanding what things you should kind of keep your eye out for if you're looking to buy or sell in this market. Okay, Aaron, any parting words?
No, I think that we covered everything, man. We'll see you guys next week.
Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Now, if you're thinking about interest rates and interest rates are on your mind, click on this video right here as Aaron and I discuss interest rates, if they're going up, if they're going down, and what to expect in the future. This video right here, it's a good one.